What is going on, everybody? Lamont at large here. Fascinating graveyard. Today we're at the Mount Hollow Cemetery here in Shelbyville, Tennessee. We're going to visit the graves of Deborah Lynn Ray and Phyllis Siebers. They were both brutally murdered December 18th, 1966. Two girls on their way to their grandmother's home to pick up some Christmas gifts, 8 and 9 years old. They stopped by to play in a city dump on the way to their grandmother's house. Both brutally and horribly murdered. Let's get right to the story. It is a brisk afternoon here in Shelbyville, Tennessee. It is Christmas week, and the children here in Shelbyville are going to be opening up their eyes on Christmas Day, and hopefully they have everything under the tree that Santa promised them. And for two girls, 9-year-old Deborah Lynn Ray and 8-year-old Phyllis Siebers, that was an exciting week for those two little girls. You remember, right? When we were little kids and Christmas was the biggest deal in the entire world, well, at least for that time being. So it's about 1 p.m. December 18th, 1966, Shelbyville, Tennessee, a very quiet town, pretty much a manufacturing town. There was a business out here that made pencils back then. So if you lived in Shelbyville, either you worked for that factory or maybe you worked for another one, or you were a farmer. So Deborah and Phyllis, both wearing red coats, and they were both cousins. So they leave their house and they're going to walk to their grandmother's home because the grandmother, she had bought them something for Christmas, and they were going to go pick it up and take it back home and put it under their tree. Now, on the way to their grandmother's house, they step outside of the door. They wave goodbye to their ma. They said, "We'll be back. We'll be back." So they're walking down the street, and the city dump, could be a place where kids just find all kinds of stuff. And maybe if your family isn't doing too hot financially, maybe you'll find a toy that maybe some other kid didn't want to, play with. So they get to the dump, and as they're going to the dump, they're pushing this almost like not a big wheel, but it was just one of those little tricycles that kids would ride back in the day, the little red ones. I don't think this one had a wheel on it. It had probably a broken wheel, so they were just pushing with this, something to play with. They get to the dump, and they just start looking around. They're messing around, and they're just looking at things, being kids being kids. Little did those two little girls know that there was a weirdo that was also on his way to the dump. He was looking for broken bicycle parts to fix his bicycle. Eddie Joseph McGee, 19 years of age. Eddie McGee was one of 12 children born very, very poor to a teenage mother. And when this guy was born, bad brain, very, very bad brain. His family kind of got tired of him because people in school would bully him just because he was so socially inept and weird. He would try to avoid the bullies when getting out of school by just kind of not leaving where the front of the school is. He would kind of go around and hop a gate just to avoid the constant harassment from his fellow classmates. When he was 14 years old, his family, deeming him incorrigible, they had sent him to a mental hospital. Something just wasn't quite right about that boy. There was something very odd, very strange. Oftentimes he would look out into the distance. He had a funny stare. When he would look at girls, he would stare at them funny. And people will always tell him, like, why do you keep staring at them? Just kind of move along. He goes to the mental hospital, and later on, he goes to an orphanage. Maybe they could adopt him. At this age now, he's probably about 14, 15 years old. He goes to the orphanage, and he continues to be a creep. He's caught spying at the girls as they're using the bathroom. And when they search his property, when they're doing the paperwork to reprimand him, they find that he has stolen a bunch of girls' underwear and had cut them up into tiny squares and had kept them in his drawer. They finally send him back to the mental hospital, and he does whatever time he has left at this place. Back in those days, back in the 60s, there was really no acute diagnosis for whatever mental illness that a person had. So he gets out of the mental hospital. Now he's about 18 years old now, and he is no longer the warden of the state, product of the state, whatever you want to call it, and now he has to fend for himself. So he makes his way back to the Shelbyville, Tennessee, somewhere around this area, and he gets a job as a dishwasher, and he would get a job as a cook, and he would bounce in between jobs. He would live at what they called flop houses back in those days. Would be basically a big house where somebody would rent out a room to people. And he was lazy. He didn't want to work. He would constantly lose his jobs just by simply not showing up to work. So finally, one of the guys that would work with him, or that worked with him, for some unknown reason, kind of felt sorry for him. So they gave him a place to stay in their home, not very far from where I'm at right now. And they paid him $5. I believe it was $5 a week and room and board. It was very, very little money, but you know, he took it because he really had nowhere else to go, and $5 a week doesn't really last very long. So he would start stealing things just to make it by. He would start stealing things and sell them just to make a little bit of money. On that day, December 18th, 1966, you have a perverted, deranged 19-year-old weirdo, Eddie McGee, looking at these two girls. Later on that evening, the two girls are supposed to be back at home, and they never showed up. So the father of one of them starts getting antsy and calls the police. The police don't have any reports of any lost children. And later on that night, you have about 200 to 300 residents, including law enforcement officials here in Shelbyville, looking for these two little girls. They start retracing their steps. They go back to the dump. They start looking, and they're looking, and they don't find anything. At that night, thick fog had came over the whole entire town, so it was very, very difficult to see. About 4:30 in the morning, they called off the search. About 3 hours later, at that dump in the end of it, there was a man that worked over there named Jesse Anderson. He was just one of these kind of like poor guys that just kind of did little menial labor around the city dump just to have a trailer to sleep in on the property. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, but he was good at setting traps in and around the dump, and I guess that's how he would hunt his food. I'm imagining that's what he was doing. So that morning he's out checking his traps, and he notices that he sees like weird footprints. And he sees these two smaller footprints and then a set of larger footprints. And then he starts following the footprints, and then he sees a blue shoe, like a child's shoe. And he starts getting a really, really bad feeling about this. And, you know, Jesse has a bad heart. He just starts getting very nervous. So he goes back to the dump, gets on the phone, and calls the manager. And he says, hey, you know, I know about the search that's going on with the kids. I see some tracks, and I seen a little kid's shoe. He goes, I don't want to go any further because I can't take the stress on my heart. So the manager gets a hold of the Shelbyville police, And they go to the area where he's seen the tracks. And by that time now, the fog had disappeared and the sun is out. And in a drainage ditch, one of them lying on their stomach, they see the two bodies of the missing girls, Deborah and Phyllis. Immediately, they're now looking for a suspect. And there was a 14-year-old kid who came forward. His name was Roger Kelly. And Roger Kelly was amongst the volunteers looking for the girls. And also another volunteer that was helping in the search was one Eddie McGee. So Roger tells the police, I was on my bicycle and I seen Deborah and Phyllis pushing like this red tricycle with a bent wheel, and going after them was Eddie McGee on his bicycle. So they contact Eddie McGee and they say, okay, what do you know about Deborah and Phyllis? He says, nothing. I wasn't there. I didn't do anything. So they go into his home to search it for any kind of evidence. They find a record player that he had previously stolen and broken into in a store here in Shelbyville. They had asked him about the record player, and they said, well, where's the receipt? How'd you get this record player? Well, that record player matched an item that was reported stolen because somebody had broken into a store here in town. So they immediately arrested him and charged him with that theft. Now, while he's in jail, they want to talk to him about what they found in his room. While they're talking to him, another detective comes upon a pair of pants and shoes. Those would be the shoes and pants that they had noticed earlier that Roger Kelly told him was the same matching outfit that he seen him wear. They had called in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to send them the pants because they had a lab and they're looking over the pants and they noticed that there's traces of blood. Now, we don't have DNA back then, but we do know that there's blood on the shoes and blood on the pants. So after interrogating him over the course of several hours and or several days, Eddie finally confesses to their murder. Now, he denied having anything to do with possibly sexually assaulting them, but I believe there was evidence of a sexual assault that took place. So they arrest him and charge him with both girls' murders. And the prosecutor at the time is wanting to go for the death penalty. Now, it's not exactly clear what exactly took place, but what is clear is that they did offer him a deal. They said, okay, listen, now that he's already pled guilty, he didn't sexually assault him. He said, I didn't do that, I just killed him. Well, why'd you kill him? I don't know, because I was afraid they were going to tell on me. Well, tell on you for what? I don't know. Making weird excuses. So eventually, they said, okay, take the 55 years in prison. And he says, no, I'm not going to take it. They go to trial. He ends up being found guilty of their murder. And instead of doing 55 years, he's sentenced to 99 years. Now, the story doesn't exactly end there, because in 2008, because of a technicality, some kind of a loophole in the law, for some unknown reason, and I don't know, Eddie McGee was only charged with Phyllis Sieber's murder. This is where both girls are buried at right here. They had only charged him with Phyllis's murder. They didn't charge him with both. I don't know why. I can't find out why they did that. So, because of the technicality, this guy all of a sudden has a release date, and the release date is sometime in August of 2008. So by that time, he would have had served 41 years in prison, and he was getting released. So the DA immediately charged him with Deborah's murder right here, and he was found guilty of that. And I want to say, don't quote me, I want to say they just got him for 20 years. It could have been 20 years to life, But whatever the exact sentence was, it would have been long enough to where he would have never got out of prison. And that is where he would remain until he died. A very, very tragic and horrific murder. And I am glad that people still leave flowers for them. And this looks like this is definitely a newer stone. This was recently done, as you can see the picture. Just a terrible story. All right, guys. Just wanted to stop by here in town. I'm just passing through. Just wanted to tell their story. Two little girls just going to the what we call a dump. They call a playground. They call it playground. Rest in peace to both Deborah and Phyllis. All right, guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.